with Bishop Dale C. Bronner.
Well, if you would turn in your Bibles, Matthew chapter 11, beginning with verse 28 through verse 30. Matthew chapter 11, verse 28 through 30, and I'm reading from the Message version of the Scriptures. It reads this way: Are you tired, worn out, burned out on religion? Come to me. Get away with me and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me, and you'll learn to live freely and lightly. I'm talking today from the subject, a teacher called grace. A teacher called grace. Because this is a picture here of yoking a small ox who needs to learn how to plow with a big ox who already knows how to plow. One of the best ways to learn anything is through what's called apprenticeship, where there is a mentoring process. If you tell me, I might get it and I might not. But if you involve me in the process, I will certainly come to an understanding of what it is and how it is and why it is if you involve me in the process. So in the Old Testament, and even in that time here, the New Testament where Jesus is, this was an agrarian society, and they used oxen to plow the field. This was an old-fashioned way of using a tiller. Now, in my time, you know, my daddy was a country boy, and so he had all of his sons out in the backyard. He'd get a tiller, and we'd use the tiller to break up the fallow ground and then sow seed in the backyard. Thank God that we didn't have to strap together some mules and ox or whatever and have them to try to pull a plow. But here you would take a young tender ox and put him in the yoke, this wooden harness, and yoked the young new ox with a big seasoned ox to teach them how to work the plow. When you put them in the yoke, and Jesus is saying, come unto me, all of you that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Come on and just take a chill on what you know and what you don't know and get in the yoke with me and learn my way. It's easy. Just move when I move. Just do what I do. Just watch me. And you take the big ox and you put him with an inexperienced ox so that you train the young ox. And so every time that the big ox moves, the little ox moves. Either that or have his neck broken, because he could literally drag it and snap his neck. And every time the big ox would stop to feed, the little ox has to stop and bow down to feed. And when the big ox rises up to move forward, the little ox has to rise up to move forward. And so they could feel the gentle pull of him just moving. And that's what happens when we come into a relationship with Jesus Christ. He puts us in a yoke of responsibility with him to say, come learn of me. And this is why sometimes you'll be driving in your car feeling like you're all alone, but you're really in a yoke when Jesus is coming to your heart. And there are times that he not only orders your steps, he also orders your stops. You can come to the end of the road and there might be a cliff and you may not be able to see it, but he's ordered you to stop because there's something there that is of extreme danger and you may not be able to see it. But when the Lord orders your stops, you need to be able to listen to him saying, stop, don't go any further. If you do, you're going to be in danger and you don't see any trouble. You might feel like it's my turn. I've got a green light. I'm going to go. But there are times, even though you have a green light, somebody else, their light just changed red, but they were saying, you know what, I believe I can beat the light. And they were going and they actually ran through the light. And just because you had a green light and it was your turn does not mean that it was your time. And so God will say, just stop. And you may not understand why sometimes God will put you on hold because you got a green light to move ahead and to do these things. And yet God, the big ox that you're yoked up with, is saying to you, take a chill, down, stop, and I'll let you know when to move. Because if you go now, because you've got a green light, there's somebody who has just run the light coming perpendicular to you who's going to knock you asunder if you don't stop. And you have to be yielded enough to God not to stand there and argue with God and say, you know what, I got a green light and I got a high octane engine here. I'm gonna floor this baby. I got to go. I've got to go. We have to learn to wait on the Lord. Be of good courage and he will direct your path. Sometimes your greatest leading from God comes not on what he told you to do in terms of ordering your steps, but when God saved your life by ordering a stop. To say, listen, don't get into relationship with a person. Saved by just not getting yoked up with the wrong person. And if you'll just listen to God, he will save you a lot of heartache when God is saying, stop. He orders your steps, but he also orders your stops, saying, hey, listen, cut them loose. You've gotten too close to this person. They are a distraction to the destiny that I called you to. Anybody know what I'm talking about? I pray that, I know that probably everybody in this room, that there's somebody that runs through your mind that you wished you had never, ever met. You wish your life would have been so much better. You would have saved money. You would have saved energy, time, and all of these things had you never wasted time with this particular person. And so God orders your steps, but he also orders your stops. You would never know that if you were not yoked into the relationship with God. And there are times, I cannot tell you the number of times that I've been sleeping in the middle of the night, 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning. And the big ox wakes up in me and he says, it's time to feed. And I'm like, really, Lord? I mean, it's 2:30. It's 2:30. Are you aware? Look at the clock, Jesus. Can't we do this later in the morning? What about meet me at 10? And no, but it's 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and he's saying it's time to feed. It's time to feed, and I cannot even go back to sleep. And I get up out of my bed and I go to my study and I fall on my knees before God. I cannot tell you how much revelation has been poured into me by the big teacher, the big ox, coming and disturbing my sleep at a time that I wasn't wanting to get up, but it's because he got up and started feeding, and he's like, you're in the yoke with me, I'm up, you're going to be up too. And we're going to have school, even though you may not be ready for class, but come on, I'm going to school. And there have been times when I knew that he was up, and I didn't want to get up, and I just laid there. I just lay there in rebellion, saying, you know, I'm going to try to go back to sleep here. And I couldn't get back to sleep because the teacher was already up having school. And I couldn't go back to sleep, and so I just had to just get up. I cannot tell you the number of times with frequency that happens in my own personal life to this day, where he just wakes me up and has school at the most inopportune time. You know, if you're really going to grow, God has to get you out of your comfort zones. You may as well just come in and make yourself uncomfortable. It's called growing pains. You don't grow in a place where there is no challenge and controversy going on in your life. You need something there where you've been made to feel uncomfortable, but it's because we are yoked together in a relationship with Jesus Christ. It's a teacher called grace. It's a teacher called grace. We want to know everything ahead of time, but he says, no, just get in the yoke with me. I'll let you know when to turn. I'll let you know when to go. I'll let you know when to stop. I'll let you know when to feed, because we've got a teacher called grace that's on the inside of us. There's a scripture in Titus chapter 2, verse 11 and 12 that says this: for the grace of God that bringeth salvation hath appeared to all men, teaching us. Notice, the grace of God that brings salvation has appeared to all men, teaching us. Say teaching. See, grace teaches. It teaches us that denying ungodliness and worldly lusts, we should live soberly, righteously, and godly in this present world. Grace teaches us something. Grace is not merely a license to sin. Grace is a teacher. Grace is a teacher. It's not merely a license to sin. You can just feel like grace is just a license to just do whatever it is that you want. Grace gives you what you do not justly deserve. Grace gives you what you do not justly deserve. So thank God, if you've messed up, if you've done something that's wrong, you don't want to ask God for justice. You want to ask him for mercy. Mercy does not give you what you do deserve. You deserve to go to jail. You deserve the death penalty, but when you have mercy, mercy keeps you from having to go. Mercy, if you get locked up, mercy can get you an early release. Mercy, mercy, mercy. Touch your neighbor, say, Lord, have mercy. Oh, we so desperately need the mercy of God in our life. But mercy does not give us what we do deserve. Grace gives us what we don't deserve. God will give you grace. God gives you grace, the grace that you never earned. It is a cherished gift of God. Grace is always a gift never earned. You don't earn grace. So there are people that God has blessed you with in your life you didn't even deserve, people that would put up with your cantankerous ways. I mean, those of you that are married folks, raise your hand. God had to give your spouse a grace to deal with you. I mean, he really did. Because your ways would drive some other people batty. In fact, there's some other people that might know your spouse and they say, girl, I don't know how you put up with him. There's some guys that say, man, I don't know how you live with her with a mouth like that. I don't even know how do you put up with her? I was in a meeting a number of years ago with Joel Osteen's father, John Osteen. And one of the other pastors asked him, he said, Brother Osteen, have you ever thought about divorce? He said, I've never thought about divorce, but I've thought about murder. And so when you're going to be with somebody, it's amazing how God has to give you a grace to live with them, because you may as well just say in the back of your mind, nobody else is going to put up with you but me. And you know why? Because God will have given you a grace for it. Grace is a divine ability of God to be what God has called you to be and to do what God has called you to do. And the only reason that you can do it and other folks cannot do it is because they don't have your grace. I'm always in awe of the grace that women have to be able to multitask. It's amazing how a woman can be watching television in one room and she's cooking dinner at the same time, and then she's got a load of clothes in the washing machine, and then she's got the telephone up to her ear and she's stirring a pot. She's got all of this stuff going on. Yeah, child, I know how I'm doing this. And she's stirring here and watching up at the corner of her eye. She's watching the TV and know what's going on over there. She's listening out for the washing machine so that when it stops, she can take that load out and put it in the dryer. And she's multitasking. And so if I'm fixing something to eat, the telephone is just going to have to ring. I'm busy. I'm a focused person. I can't watch television. I can't be on the telephone. I can't have a load of clothes in. Either you want me to cook or you cook. And so if I'm in the kitchen doing something, I've got to focus on what I'm doing. I can't have, and I almost get stressed out if I'm trying to cook too many things at one time. I can't deal with what's going on, something in the oven and something is in the toaster over here and this is going on the stove. It's too much. I need help. And so that's a challenge for me at times to be able to do that. And I admire my wife. I wonder, how can you do that? Because if you ask me to do two things here, something is going to burn over here. I mean, the clothes are going to get rough dried and all kinds of things are going to happen because I've got to focus here. I can do one thing at a time. Let me finish this and then I'll be with you. It takes a grace to be able to multitask. And what you have as a grace, you can't teach that to someone else because you've got a grace for it. You can't teach it. So my wife has never been able to successfully teach me how to multitask. I don't have the grace for it. She's got the grace. And what you have by grace, you don't have the ability to teach it to another. That you either have the grace or you don't. But at the same time, I thought about it in different areas of life. I have to multitask in different ways. You know, I wear a father hat. I wear a husband hat. I wear a pastor hat. I wear a global communicator's hat. I'm just getting back from teaching a group of pastors over in Dallas. I've got to preach at a pastor's conference tomorrow. I'm working on 2 books. And there are a lot of different things. I deal with businessmen and helping here. And so I can multitask. And people wonder, how in the world do you do that? It's because I'm graced to do it. I'm not even stressed. I just had to do a video in between service for another conference. And it's because I am graced to do it. I'm graced to do it. There's a grace of God that is in my life. Some other people say, you know, listen, I couldn't do that. I don't know how in the world you do this, that, and the other thing. But I have a grace of God in my life to do it. And grace makes it easy. But it's because of a teacher called grace. So you thank God for his incredible grace that enables you divinely to be what God has called you to be and to do what God has called you to do. Thank God for grace. There's a teacher called grace that is in your life that gives you the ability to meet the challenges of your day. I know that you feel like you're going to lose your mind because you've got so much to do. My heart goes out to single mothers that have to multitask and come home and help children with homework and then clean the house and cook and wash and fold clothes and take care of the yard and then maintain the cars and do all of this. And there's so much to do. It takes a grace to do it. And oftentimes you don't realize how much grace that you have been operating under until you look back in your life and said, you know, I don't know how in the world I made it as a single parent with raising these 2 children. It was but the grace of God. I mean, it takes grace even for mama and daddy working together, trying to raise children. Don't just think just because you got a spouse that everything is just a piece of cake and, you know, you do your part and I do. No. It still takes a miracle from God of being graced of God to be able to even have family nowadays. It takes a grace from God. And so I'm indebted to God for the grace that he brings into our life to be able to do what he's called us to do and to be what God has called us to be. And so his desire for us, God's desire for us, is for us to be transformed and not conformed. It is to be transformed and not conformed. There are some things that religion tries to conform us into, but when you come into relationship with Jesus Christ, relationship transforms you. And so I've seen some people who've gotten in trouble in the world, and then they want to blame God. You know, they said, Lord, the woman that thou gavest me. And they want to blame God for something that they actually chose. Please make a note of this. There is a difference between suffering because you are a Christian and suffering because you made unwise choices. A huge difference between suffering because you're a Christian and suffering because you made unwise choices. You have the right to make your choices, but you do not have the right to choose the consequences. The consequences are built into the choice. You make the choice, but you have to deal with the consequences of it. Now, you have the choice to eat whatever you want to eat when you leave here. Some of you will make bad choices and you will pay for it with diarrhea. You might enjoy the meal, but just certain things will mess your stomach up. You know it. Some of you love to eat certain things, and it's okay. You know, you'll do it. I met a young woman. I had never seen this before. She had an allergy to sugar. And I asked her, she was working in a super salad place. I said, what happens if you eat sugar? She said she would pass out. I said, are you telling me that you could be seduced with a candy bar? And I asked her, I said, so you're saying that you don't ever eat sugar? Don't you crave sugar, some sweet stuff every now and then? And she said, yes, I do. And she said sometimes she'll be at home, and she said she'll sit on the side of her bed with a candy bar and eat until she passes out. She knows the consequences, but it's just built into it, and she enjoys it until she goes into unconsciousness. She just deals with the consequences. So You have a right to make the choice, but you cannot choose the consequences. And so please remember that there's a huge difference between suffering as a Christian and suffering because you made unwise choices. See, the concept of conformity is to take an external set of rules and regulations and then impose them on people to make them change. That's conformity. You get in the military, you have to conform. But it is not something that is truly in the heart. The concept of transformation is to change from the inside out, much like the change of a caterpillar to a butterfly or through metamorphosis. As a matter of fact, the Greek word for transformation is where we derive the English word for metamorphosis. You see, the caterpillar does not have to wait for something on the outside of itself to change, because in its DNA, say DNA, the DNA is the divine nature attributes. Divine nature attributes. In the DNA is everything that it needs in order to become a butterfly. And so even when you're feeling like a worm, like a caterpillar, on the inside of you is a spiritual DNA, a divine nature attribute to be able to sprout wings and be able to fly. If you believe you can fly, it's because you've got a God who teaches us that they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like an eagle. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. There's an ability that's in you. It's hard to keep on crawling when you've got an impulse and an instinct in you to soar. It's already in you. It's in your DNA that you're supposed to be a butterfly. You are not supposed to stay in the same low state of being carnal and animalistic in your behavior in life. We were designed to sprout wings and fly. You were built for the air. You were built to be able to get up off of the ground. Your destiny is not something that you find outside. You don't just get a book of business opportunities and say, let me see what I can do to make some money. You got to look on the inside of you. Find out who you are. Find out what's on the inside of you. Don't ask what the world needs. What the world needs are people who have come alive. Find out what makes you passionate in this life, and do the very thing that you were born to do, that turns you on, that makes you passionate about living, that adds meaning and purpose and significance to your life. Find out what those things are. They're already in you. Are you aware that the word to bless, one of the meanings of the word to bless means to reveal hidden potential? So when God blesses you, He's not putting something in you. He's unveiling something that's already in you, showing you what you've already got. The wings are already built into the caterpillar. It's a transformer. And God is trying to say, I've got a butterfly in you, but when all of the images that you have are crawling around in the dirt, you'll never sprout your wings. And God has to oftentimes put you into a cocoon to isolate you. There's always isolation before there is elevation. And you've got to be sealed off from the opinions of other people that are trying to define your reality and make it like you were designed to crawl around in the dust, crawling on your belly all of the days of your life. That was a part of the curse. Hey, here's good news. We are redeemed from the curse of the law because Jesus Christ was made a curse for us. We are not designed to eat a dust diet. We are designed to feast off of the manna that comes from heaven. We're supposed to be eagles feeding off of live prey, not dusty, dirty, carnal, earthy, nasty things that are on the earth. We're supposed to sprout our wings, but you've got to be willing to go into the burial place called the cocoon, where the transformation of God's grace, of something not that's being put in you, but something that is being let out of you. So when you really get somebody to bless you, they've only shown you what's on the inside of you. I pray that you'll start seeing that there are entrepreneurs on the inside of you. There are businessmen. There are business ideas. And I pray that you have the faith of God to rise up on the inside of you and say, I wasn't built to work for somebody all the days of my life. There are plans in me. There are books in me. There are ideas in me. There's something that I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to be running a child care place. I'm supposed to have a lawn service. I'm supposed to have a car wash detail. I'm supposed to have a computer company. I'm supposed to have this. You ought to be able to get an idea of what God has on the inside. Until you see the image of the butterfly, you'll keep on crawling around eating the dirt. Another one bites the dust. Is the song is the devil will be chanting about you. But you were designed to mount up with wings like an eagle and let this metamorphosis of the power of the Holy Ghost unveil to you the nature that is already in you. Destiny is never what you decide. Destiny is what you discover. You discover what God has already decided. Jeremiah chapter 29 and verse 11, God says, I know the plans that I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you a hope and a future. God says, I've already decided the plans. You just discover what I've already decided. You got to discover that. You find somebody that's great in music, I guarantee you they didn't get in music because somebody talked them into it. They were born with that music in them. You're born with music in you. You're born in music with you, with music in you. Here's my admonition to you. Don't die with your music still in your bosom. Don't die with your music in your bosom. Don't die with your business still in you. Don't die with your poetry still in you. Don't die with your spoken word in you. Do not die with your ideas still on the inside of you. Birth them. They're in you. It's in you. It is in you. It's in you. Don't let your background of what your mama and your daddy did, what your ancestors did and what they failed to do.
Thank you for watching